really shared this story publicly before, but every time I tell it to any friends, they're always just fascinated by it. And even I'm fascinated by it because I still don't fully understand exactly why or how things happened the way they did for me. So on September 11th of 2001, I was working at Warner Brothers at the time. I lived in Hollywood with a roommate. I didn't have a car, so I would ride the bus across the hill to the studio every day for my job. I was pretty good about waking up early in the morning, but I never like to wake up too early because I'm a girl who likes my sleep. But on September 11th, I woke up out of a deep, deep sleep just like that. It was the weirdest thing. And I remember immediately looking at the clock, wondering what the heck time was it. And it was around like 5:45-ish in the morning. And I had a moment where I was like, why did I wake up? Something startled me awake and I didn't quite know what it was. So I looked at the clock, saw the time, was like, okay, it's way too early to be awake. And then what I did is I looked at the end of my bed. That's when I saw a lot of spirits. And I mean, they surrounded my bed. I would say easily 100 people staring at me, mouthing the words help. And I distinctly remember looking into this crowd of spirits and wondering what is happening. Because at the time I wasn't really trained as a medium. I had not taken any classes to understand my gift or my ability. I just had that natural ability to see and sense spirits. But it typically would happen at like historical monuments or, you know, old castles in Europe, places where you would expect to see old spirits of the dead. In my apartment in Hollywood, I really hadn't sensed anyone before. So to wake up with hundreds of people around my bed looking at me and mouthing help, I couldn't hear them. I just remember their mouths moving and just going. And I was just like shocked. I didn't know what was happening. Being naive, being innocent as I was, I closed my eyes tight and I was like, please go away. Opened my eyes, they were still there. And again, I was like, please go away. They were still there. Eventually, I had to look at them and I looked at a few in the eye and I just said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Can you please find someone else? And like that, they were gone. And I still have mixed feelings about that because in hindsight now I know who they were and I knew what they needed. And I feel a lot of guilt that I didn't help them. But at the time I knew that I couldn't. I knew that I wasn't the right person to help get a message where they needed it to go. So like I say, I made eye contact with a few of them. There were at least 3 flight attendants that I saw. They were women wearing uniforms. They were like skirt suit kind of uniforms. I remember seeing businessmen in suits and ties. I specifically remember there was one businessman who was kind of right off to the right side of my bed, and he was really animated and moving his hands. And so many people. So what I did after that moment, I was like, I can't go back to sleep. It was so shocking to me. I had to get out of bed. So I did. And then I did what I had never done in my entire life. And I'm not kidding. I turned the TV on. I wasn't someone to turn on the TV in the morning. I just didn't like it. But that morning at just shy of 6 a.m., I was like, I'm up. I'm going to turn on the TV. And I literally saw the first tower on fire. And at first I thought I was watching a movie. I was like, why do they have this movie showing on CBS or ABC or whatever I was watching? It's like, why is this movie on? And then the anchor came on and said, you know, we repeat, there's been an attack. The tower's been hit. And as I watched the TV, I saw the second plane fly into the tower. And I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. So I went to my roommate's bedroom and I knocked on her door and I was like, I think we're under attack. And she goes, what? And I said, I think it's a terror attack and we're under attack. And she flew out of bed, ran to the living room with me, and we just sat and we watched the TV. And I remember just saying to her, I left all the details out of what had happened in my bedroom because I didn't want to scare her, for one, but I also was still just processing. And so I remember saying to her, I don't know if I should go to work. I don't know what to do. Do you go to work after something like this? Like, this is still happening. And some time passed, and it's getting closer to me needing to catch the bus and go to work. So ultimately I decided I'm gonna go. So I had been there for about 30 minutes at the time. So this was now like 9:30 Pacific time. We got a notice from the studio that said the studio is closed. Everyone go home for your safety. We will tell you when to come back from work, or come back to work, excuse me. So beyond that first experience of seeing all these spirits around me, I did not feel a connection to them again after that moment, after that initial moment. So when I went home, I started to do some research. Once there was more detail about what the planes were, what airlines they were, etc. I hadn't really flown American Airlines that much, so I couldn't remember how their flight attendants dressed, but I could remember what I saw. And so I went onto the internet and I was researching American Airlines flight attendants, their uniforms. And shortly after the attacks happened, they knew the names of the flight attendants, and they had released them. So there were lots of pictures of these flight attendants. So I found photos of the uniforms. I found photos of the flight attendants, their professional portraits. And there was one face in particular that I recognized as one of the women that was standing literally front and center at the end of my bed. So when I was looking at the end of my bed, front and center was this woman. There was a few other flight attendants next to her this way. There was one this way. And then there was just like what I would consider passengers behind her. And I just remember her so clearly. And I found her photo. And what shocked me was her name was Amy. And it wasn't spelled the same as mine, but it was still just one of those things of like, it's a little too close to home. But over time, as more stories and information came out, we discovered that this is one of the flight attendants who was so brave when this plane had been taken, and she really led the charge in making sure that people knew what was happening. She was the one who helped those of us on the ground to really respond, and she was a hero. And just remembering her standing there holding the souls of every other person on that flight. My heart was touched, obviously. Such a brave soul. And like I said, I still feel such mixed emotions about not being able to do anything for her. But I hope and I pray that in telling this story that it provides some help, some healing, some closure to someone. So there. That's my 9/11 story. That was my experience. And I hope that we can remember those souls. We can honor them. We can treasure their memories far into the future.